The Fitterist Show with your host, Christopher Allen, where we explore the art of mind and body conditioning. Today's show focuses on several new and updated news headlines in the health and wellness arena. First, we'll revisit Beyond Meat since its stellar IPO and market run-up and take a look at their current strategy, competitive threats lurking, and global market opportunity. Next, we'll discuss several recently published medical studies with regard to exercise, obesity, physical activity guidelines, and what you can do to both mitigate your risk of obesity while also ensuring you're getting at least the recommended level of physical activity to support your healthy lifestyle. And finally, we'll examine another recently released study on how to best reduce belly fat and improve your overall cardiovascular fitness. So let's dive in. News headlines. All right, so the first news headline we're going to dive into is a little update on Beyond Meat. And just in case you needed a little reminder of the power of marketing and hype, we have the company Beyond Meat. Now, it's down from a high of just under $235 at the end of July to about $162 at the time we're recording this episode. But the stock is still a high flyer and up significantly from its $65 close on its opening day of IPO. So it's trading at around 55 times earnings, still unprofitable. Investors are starting to sell and take some profits, but has a market cap of $10 billion. And it's still, from its IPO, has about $277 million in cash on hand. So the question is it well positioned to continue its good performance? So, Dunkin' Donuts has added a Beyond Meat sausage to its menu. Beyond Meat has also partnered with Subway to market a plant-based meatball sub. Subway has its own challenges that it's facing, but it sees the meatless, plant-based protein trend and is trying something. Sales to restaurants now for Beyond Meat have accounted for roughly one half of their second quarter 19 revenue. But one question I always have is, do people really go to a fast food restaurant to eat a theoretically, quote, healthy burger or healthy plant-based protein? I say theoretically because Beyond Meat is not actually healthier than a lean ground beef burger, but that was covered in detail in episode number 10 of the Fitterist Show. So you can go back and check that out if you want to see a detailed review of Beyond Meat. So personally, I suspect Beyond Meat will become an acquisition target once the stock comes crashing back to reality. There are some large, well-organized companies wading into the plant-based protein space, companies like Hormel, Archer Daniels, and so I just think I think they probably have a good product and they'll continue their R&D efforts with their $277 million cash, but I think overall, we'll see if they can capitalize beyond its current first mover advantage, but I think they're a likely acquisition target. So we'll see. I'll keep you up to date. The second news headline is a study recently published out of the National Taiwan University, and it studied the effects of physical exercise on obesity markers. Now, just as a background, worldwide, 13% of the global population is obese. And more locally, in the United States, we're closing in on 40% of the country is obese, which is insane. Now, a person's genetic predisposition to obesity is a key factor, but there's also a lot of complex variables and a lot of interplay between diet, lifestyle, and genetics. So this study, which is pretty massive, it had 18,000 participants in Taiwan, ages 30 to 70, and they really measured 5 different obesity measures. So they measured BMI, body mass index, body fat percentage, BFP, waist circumference, hip circumference, and waist to hip ratio. So they measured all 5 of those as a part of this longitudinal study. And it included self-reported data from the participants on the forms of exercises that they did on a regular basis. So in summary, the results indicated that, not surprisingly, performing regular exercises was found to attenuate the genetic effects on at least 4 of the obesity measures, including body mass index, body fat percentage, waist circumference, and hip circumference. And they reported 18 different kinds of regular exercises. And it was found that 6 of these exercises mitigated the genetic effects on at least one of those 5 obesity measures. So regular jogging blunted the genetic effects on body mass index, body fat percentage, and hip circumference. Mountain climbing, walking, exercise walking, international standard dancing, and a longer practice of yoga also attenuated the genetic effects on body mass index. And exercises such as cycling, stretching, swimming, Dance Revolution, I find that to be a little bit difficult. Just how that's a lot of Dance Revolution. Anyway, Dance Revolution were found not to modify the genetic effects on any of the obesity measures. The results also showed that things like weight training, badminton, table tennis, basketball, tennis, tai chi, and other exercise routines were ineffective in lessening a person's predisposition to obesity. However, the team notes that there was also limited data on some of those activities because they were just less popular among the participants. Remember, this study took place in Taiwan, so a little different culture in terms of common forms of fitness and activities versus the United States. Across all 5 of those obesity measures, regular jogging consistently presented the most significant interaction to help reduce overall predisposition to obesity. Again, not surprising overall, given elevated heart rate, cardiovascular conditioning, all the things that regular jogging and vigorous exercise provides had an impact. The findings show that the genetic effects on obesity measures can be decreased. This is the important thing. Even though you have a genetic predisposition to obesity, you can actually impact those and decrease those obesity measures to some level by performing different kinds of exercise. And the benefits of regular physical exercise are more impactful in subjects who are more predisposed to obesity. So again, the general takeaway from this study that I find interesting is that you can, even though you have genetic predisposition to obesity, you can impact that and lower your likelihood to become obese through regular exercise. Obviously, the more vigorous the exercise, like jogging in particular, the more the benefit to reducing that obesity marker. News story number 3. This comes to us out of the University of Iowa. It's a study around activity and time spent on sedentary behavior among U.S. adults with a time span from 2007 to 2016. And they really looked at the data from the U.S. National Health and Nutrition Examination Surveys between that time period, which had a total of about 27,000 plus participants. And what it really looked at was the physical activity guidelines, or the PAG. These were published by the government. Many people don't know this. They were published by the government in 2008. And it highlights, in that particular study, those guidelines really highlight the risks of overly sedentary behavior coupled with a lack of physical activity. So this study out of the University of Iowa is really to measure, are we as a nation adhering to these physical activity guidelines for aerobic activity, which were defined as engaging in at least 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity or 75 minutes a week of vigorous intensity aerobic physical activity, or an equivalent combination of moderate and vigorous intensity for total physical activity. So they're really looking at, are we as a nation getting better from the data in 2007-2008 with regard to physical activity versus the data from 2015 to 2016? So almost a decade later, a little less. So what were the results? So among the 27,000 plus participants, the weighted adherence rate to the physical activity guidelines was about 65.2% in 2015 and 2016, that time span. And there was no significant change from 2007-8 to 2015-16. Time spent on sedentary behavior, however, significantly increased over time from a weighted mean of 5.7 hours per day in 2007 and 8 to 6.4 hours per day in 2015-16. And if you kind of combine those two, and they looked at the weighted proportion of people that did not adhere to the physical activity guidelines for aerobic activity and reported long sedentary time, daily over 6 hours per day, that percentage increased from 16% in 2007-8 to 18.8% in 2015-2016. So these findings obviously suggest that the adherence rate to the physical activity guidelines for aerobic activity has not really improved in the span of almost a decade. However, the time spent on sedentary behavior has significantly increased over time. Now, obviously, the speculation, much more work, computer, staring at screens, phones, tablets, video games have all massively increased over the past decade, which is a likely contributor to the increased sedentary time. So it appears as a nation, we need to do something to drive more physical activity and reduce sedentary time in the United States. Both insufficient physical activity and obviously prolonged sedentary time are associated with a higher risk of adverse health conditions, including chronic diseases and mortality. So again, overall, a very interesting study, and as if we needed it, we have yet another study indicating that the United States is just getting fatter, as we already lead the world in obesity. And now the combination of sedentary behavior and lack of physical activity combined with poor diet, which isn't even obviously mentioned in this particular study, but we know that diet just exacerbates the entire situation and just leads to a higher likelihood of chronic disease and degraded health. So the takeaway here, if you're not already, start to move. Move. Just get up, move. Make the time. I don't know what's more important than your health. Make the time to walk, jog, climb stairs, go for a hike, walk your dog 3 times a day, whatever it takes. Just start to move. If you start to move, it takes care of the sedentary behavior and increases your physical activity. Double bonus. Our fourth news headline of the day comes to us from the Journal of Sports Medicine and Physical Fitness, which studied the best way to flatten your stomach. So the way they did this, it was an 8-week program. They had about 39 volunteers that exercised 4 times per week. One group performed 4 regular cardio and strength workouts. The other group did 2 regular cardio and strength workouts and 2 high-intensity interval training or HIIT workouts. And then the researchers used a series of tests to kind of assess the participants' progress. So short study, but relatively interesting on the results. So both exercise programs were effective in reducing total body fat and visceral adiposity. So this is the belly fat in particular, while also improving some strength, sprint time, jumping ability, and flexibility. But only the combination of the high-intensity interval training and conventional training improved cardiorespiratory fitness levels. So not only did the HIIT group lose more weight overall, but they also lost more inches on their waistline compared to the conventional exercise group. Now, this is only an 8-week study, but those HIIT participants reduced their levels of visceral fat, which is really found in the abdomen associated with health problems like type 2 diabetes. And they also showed an increase in that cardiorespiratory fitness level, while the counterparts did not. So the theory around high interval intensity training is short bursts of intense energy, all out, followed by a rest period, and repeat. So the body really gets pushed to its limit, causing it to burn fat, not only during the training session, but during the rest of the days, the researchers claim. So 8 weeks of combined HIIT, high-intensity interval training in conventional training improve not only the physical parameters, but they also reduce visceral fat levels more than just traditional cardio and resistance training. This type of training was found to be just superior compared with just conventional exercise training. Again, the key is reducing that visceral fat in the abdomen. So if you haven't given HIIT training a try, you may want to check it out and try it. It is intense, and it does have its health benefits, and certainly it is a great option to have in your cardio arsenal and offers numerous benefits on the cardiovascular side, on the fat reduction side, particularly the visceral fat reduction. So give it a shot. Try it out. And those are the news headlines for this week. Beyond Meat and 3 scientific studies recently published. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next time. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to The Fitterist Show. You can follow us on Instagram at FitteristMindBody and on Twitter at FitteristMind. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to a friend or subscribe to make sure you don't miss any future episodes of The Fitterist Show. My name is Christopher Allen, and make it a magical day.